Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. So it's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, February 14th. It's about 350 albums coming out this week. I got 21 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's about 350 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 21 of them on the show, though, so I know it's a lot, but if there's something you're looking forward to that I don't talk about on the show, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below in the comment section for them. And you can also always go over to the Vinyl Den store on Amazon. I got all the pre-orders on there, new releases, all sorts of cool stuff to check out. I think the album that I'm looking forward to the most this week is a new album from Lumineers. This is Automatic. It's their fifth studio album. It's going to run you around $30. There's a black version of this. There's also an orchid and tangerine version, which is the indie exclusive. The Lumineers, I think, has been one of the best and most consistent rock bands over the last, I'd say, 10 or 15 years. All their albums so far have all been top 10 hits in the U.S. They've got a bunch of number one singles also. But I think their last album, Brightside, was kind of a letdown for me. I don't think it was quite as good as their first several albums. Even though it was still a good album, it wasn't as good as those earlier albums. But, I'll definitely add it to my list to stream this week. I'm sure it's going to end up being a really good album. You've also got Sabrina Carpenter, Short and Sweet, coming out. So this came out last year. It's her sixth studio album. This is a 2 LP release. It's going to be on blue vinyl. It's going to run you around $46. So this is the deluxe edition of the album that she released last year. It's got alternate artwork on there. I think it's got five additional bonus tracks on there. It was a huge album when it got released, though. It hit number one in a bunch of different countries. I think it ended the year number 3 on Billboard's list of the top 50 albums of 2024. I'm not a big fan of this album. There's a couple of tracks on there that I think are okay, but I'm sure these extra tracks are going to be available on streaming services, but I'll at least go back through and stream this week. There's also a really good R&B album from the 90s that's getting reissued this week. It's been a while since this one's been reissued. This is the self-titled debut album from Brandy. Came out back in 1994. It's a 2 LP release. It's going to run around $33. So last time this album got reissued was in 2017, and I think that was the first time it had been repressed since 1994. This album was met with some mixed reviews when it first came out, but it was a huge success commercially. It hit I think it was number 20 on the Billboard 200. Sold a couple million copies. All 5 singles off this album were all top 10 hits here in the U.S. It was an album I didn't really fully appreciate until many years after it was released. So you got that getting reissued this week. You also got Honeymoon by Beach Bunny coming out. This came out back in 2020. It was their debut studio album. It's going to be an Eco Mix purple vinyl. I'm not a fan of Eco Mix vinyl. I do have, I have one Eco Mix album that actually sounds really good, but I know there's been a lot of really bad reviews about it over the last couple of years, especially with the whole Billie Eilish album coming out. It's going to run you around $30. So Beach Bunny, I think, is one of the better, newer rock bands that's come out over the last several years. They formed, I think it was 2015 when they formed, but started as a solo project. They didn't turn into a full-fledged band until 2017. So Beach Bunny kind of got their start because of TikTok. So back in 2018, they released their EP called Prom Queen. The lead single off of that got some traction on TikTok, ended up hitting number 26 on the Billboard Rock Singles charts. So when they released their debut album, the single Cloud 9 got some traction on radio play, but I think it was mainly because of the success they had with that 2018 EP. They kind of carried that into their debut album. Their debut album, Honeymoon, ended up hitting number 2 on the Billboard Heat Seeker chart here in the U.S. But I didn't listen to this album until within probably, I think, the last year I've listened to this album. I didn't discover Beach Bunny until they released their second album, Emotional Creatures. I was in a record store a couple of years ago. Actually, it was right after the album came out. And they were playing it in the store, and I was like, "What is this?" I started talking to the guy that owned the record store, and he started talking about Beach Bunny, and I picked up the album. It's a great album. I really do enjoy their debut album. I think their second album is a little better than this one, but it's a band to at least go back and check out. You've also got Chuck Berry Collected coming out this week. This is a new career-spanning compilation spanning his 7 decades in music. It's going to run you around $48. It's a 2 LP release. It's a music on vinyl release. And that's why it's a little more pricier. Music on vinyl releases tend to be on the pricier side, but they do a great job with these releases. There's 35 of his best tracks across these 2 LPs. I mean, what can you say about Chuck Berry? You know, he's the father of rock and roll. I think he's not only one of the most important musicians, but probably one of the most influential musicians of all time. I don't think I own any of his music on vinyl though, so this is definitely one I'll probably end up grabbing if I can grab it on sale somewhere, because you know, $48 plus shipping is kind of pricey for me. But, you know, like I said, if I can grab it, I will. We also got Iron Maiden, The Number of the Beast, getting reissued. This came out back in 1982 as their third studio album. It's going around $24. This is the band's first album with Bruce Dickinson. It was also their first top 40 hit here in the U.S. This is the album I think really established Iron Maiden as one of the, you know, biggest and best metal bands of the early part of the 80s. I'm on the record as saying I'm not a big fan of Bruce Dickinson's vocals. I do love the first two Iron Maiden albums. I haven't listened to this one in a while, though, so I probably should go back through and listen to it. There's also a couple other Iron Maiden albums getting reissued this week. I should add that all three of these are the 2015 remasters, so you're not getting anything new on these albums. This next one is Peace of Mind. It came out back in 1983. It was their fourth studio album. It's going to run you about $24. So musically, this is a continuation of what they did on The Number of the Beast. It was met with pretty widespread acclaim. Hit number 14 on the Billboard 200, which I think was their highest charting album up until that point. Sold over 2 million copies worldwide. In 2007, IGN actually listed this as, I think it was number 21 on their best metal albums of all time. It's another one where, like I said, because of Bruce Dickinson's vocals, I haven't listened to in a long time. I will go back this week and at least stream parts of it, because it's been a while since I've listened to that one. And they've also got Seventh Son of a Seventh Son coming out. This came out back in 1988. It was their seventh studio album. It's going to also run you about $24. So this is a concept album. It was inspired by the novel Seventh Son. And this is also the first album where Iron Maiden incorporated a little more of almost like a progressive metal sound into the music. It was their sixth consecutive platinum album. And I think this was the first Iron Maiden album that I remember getting released. Like I said, this is 1988, so I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old when this album came out. There's a couple of great Less Than Jake albums getting reissued this week. These are both on standard black vinyl. They had colored limited versions of these that were released like a week or two back. First one was Pezcore, came out back in 1995. It was their debut studio album. It's going to run you about $24. This is one of those albums I think really kind of helped spark the ska punk craze in the middle part of the 90s. So Less Than Jake, they were largely inspired by the British ska band Snuff. And then so they took that ska sound that band had and combined it with a lot of the third wave ska stuff that was going on in the middle part of the 90s. And it was, what their first couple of albums, I think, are easily some of the best ska albums of the 90s. A couple of tracks on here would be re-recorded and go on Losing Streak. This was one that's been out of print for a very long time. I think this is the first time it's been reissued since it came out back in 1995. So I already have the collector's edition of both these albums, though. So it's a great one to look at. You also got Losing Streak, which came out back in 1996. It was their second studio album. Also going to run you $24. This is a landmark album. This is one where Less Than Jake really kind of put themselves out in the mainstream, had a lot of mainstream success with this one. It was definitely more of a polished sound than what they had on Pezcore. Helped push the album up to number 18 on the Billboard Heat Seekers chart. Like I said, this has a lot of their best known tracks on this one. So I had never listened to the Dollyrots before they released their 10th album in 2023, which is called Night Owls. It ended up being one of my favorite albums of that year. I was surprised that that was their 10th album. So I went back and started listening to the earlier stuff. There's two of their earlier albums getting reissued this week. First one was Eat My Heart Out. Came out back in 2004. It was their debut album. It's going to run you about $35. This is just one of those fun early 2000s punk albums. And it's an album that I completely missed for 20 years. I wish I would have listened to it back then because it's a really good album. I don't think it's as good as Night Owls, but it's probably one of my favorite albums from the band so far. Then you've also got Barefoot and Pregnant getting reissued. This came out back in 2014. It was their fifth studio album. So by the time they got to this album, I should add that this is going to run you about $29. So by the time they got to their fifth album, they're much more of a polished band. They had a little more of experimental elements in their music. I don't think this is as good as their debut album, but it definitely charted better, I think, at number 7 on the Billboard Heat Seekers chart. So make sure you definitely check out both those albums. And then the last 7 albums I got on my list for today are the 7 albums from a band that I've long considered one of the best rock bands ever to come out of the U.S., and that's Creedence Clearwater Revival. So you got their self-titled debut album that came out in 1968. It's going to be on Sky Blue vinyl. It's going to run about $24. This is the album that introduced the world to their blend of blues rock. I had Susie Q on there. These are all newly remastered. And that's one thing that I think people forget about CCR is they released 7 albums over a 4-year span. And there were so many incredible tracks across all of those albums. It was just an amazing run that the band was on. But you got that one coming out. You also got their second album, Bayou Country, came out in 1969. It's their second album. It's also going to run you about $24. This one's going to be on Tangerine vinyl. It was released like 6 months after the debut album. And this is the first of 3 albums they would release in 1969. But you've got Born on the Bayou on here, Proud Mary are, I think, the 2 big tracks off of that one. Then 7 months later, the band will release their third album, Green River. This is going to be on olive vinyl. It's also going to be about $24. So this is the first #1 album for the band. They had 2 big singles off here, which were Bad Moon Rising and Green River. Both of those hit #2 on the Billboard singles charts. Probably one of my favorite albums from the band. And then just 2 months later, they would release Willie and the Poor Boys. This one's going to be a little more expensive. It's going to run you about $26, $2 more. This is going to be on Canary Yellow vinyl. It hit #2 on the Billboard 200. It's got 2 of my favorite songs from the band on there, which are Fortunate Son and Down on the River. It's just a great album to go back through. I'd probably rank that up as one of my favorites also. And then just 9 months after Willie and the Poor Boys came out, you've got Cosmo's Factory. So this is their 5th studio album. It's going to be on Apple Red vinyl. It's also going to be $26. And as popular as Willie and the Poor Boys was, Cosmo's Factory was an even bigger album. This is the one that had Traveling Band on there. There's Who'll Stop the Rain on there. There's also Up Around the Bend. So those are like 3 huge staple tracks from the band. And then unfortunately from there, I think it was all kind of downhill from the band. So 5 months later, they would release Pendulum. So this is going to be on brown vinyl. It's going to be $24. This is the first album from CCR not to have any cover songs on there. Outside of Have You Ever Seen the Rain, I think it's probably their second worst album. That one track, it makes it, I guess it kind of redeems the album a little bit, but I definitely rank that towards the bottom of their discography. And then their last album, which was Mardi Gras, came out in 1972. It was their 7th and final album. It's going to be on gold vinyl. So this is the only CCR album that I don't think I've ever listened to all the way through. It's also their least commercially successful album. This is the first album that they recorded as a 3-piece band. This is also the first album where John Fogerty gave up some of the control as far as writing goes. Because previously he had written all the songs on there that changed on this album. I think that kind of hurt the music a little bit. This is also the only album of theirs not to go platinum. And like I said, I've never listened to it all the way through. I definitely need to check it out. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to this week. Surprisingly, I don't think I've got anything I'd pre-order this week. I'm definitely looking forward to the new Lumineers album. I'll stream that and check that out. I might grab that Chuck Berry. I might grab the first probably 4 or 5 CCR albums. I don't know. We'll see what I'll end up grabbing this week, but let me know what you guys are looking forward to. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.